This is Pop Culture Confidential, and I'm Christina Yerling Biro. Hi everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm recording these opening thoughts on the road, fresh from an amazing week at the Telluride Film Festival, so forgive a little bit of background noise that you'll be hearing here around me. It's been another incredible year at Telluride, and honestly one of the best for me in terms of films and conversations and experiences. As always, Telluride is a wonderfully intimate festival where cinephiles and passionate moviegoers and press gather under the beautiful mountains to celebrate cinema. Some of my best film conversations have been in the lines waiting for the movies through the years over at Telluride. This year, the consensus on the ground was that Chloe Zhao's Hamnet, about William and Agnes Shakespeare and the loss of their son, was the most talked about and powerful film. A moving, devastating experience that left us all in tears. You'll hear more about that later on the show. Another big highlight at Telluride was Joachim Trier's Sentimental Value, starring Stellan Skarsgård, which originally premiered in Cannes, but it got just as much love here in Telluride at its North American premiere. An unexpected crowd pleaser that I heard lots of people around me talk about was a really warm, entertaining film about a piano tuner turned safecracker starring Leo Woodall and Dustin Hoffman. People were really buzzing about this film in line, so look out for that one. Some really prevalent themes that stood out this year at Telluride was the power of reconnecting and understanding through art, parenthood, and the choices that we make in life. For example, in Sentimental Value, Stellan Skarsgård's character, who is a film director, looking back at his life while trying to reconnect with his daughter. In Hamnet, art becomes a way of processing grief. In J. Kelly, the new film starring George Clooney, he plays an actor who's reflecting upon his career and his relationship with his daughter. And even Paolo Sorrentino's La Grazia explores a political figure played by Tony Servillo who's reckoning with his past and his family. And across the program, we also saw striking portrayals of both fatherhood and motherhood, including Rose Byrne in If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. And that is one of the standout performances of the festival. You'll hear more about that one, too. Awards-wise, looking forward to the Oscar race, two incredible lead performances are standing out. One is Renate Reinsve in Sentimental Value, and the other is Jessie Buckley in Hamnet. Hers may be the performance to beat, really powerful performances. Stellan Skarsgård feels like a frontrunner for supporting actor with his layered and beautiful turn as director Gustav Borg. And Jeremy Allen White, of course, brought down the house as Bruce Springsteen in Deliver Me From Nowhere. My personal favorites were, not surprisingly, Sentimental Value, which I've talked to you about before, followed closely by Hamnet, which really had me destroyed. It's such a beautiful, powerful film. We're going to be talking about that one. I was surprised by how much I liked J. Kelly, and to be honest, disappointed by Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Of course, what makes Telluride so special for me every year is staying with, meeting, and collaborating with my gang there, the AwardsWatch gang. The best in the business, such smart conversations and reviews, and with such plenty of laughter when we're there, surviving on 3 hours of sleep and emotional highs from the great cinema that we're watching. So I asked my wonderful colleagues to each pick a film and review it with me. You're going to be hearing, in no particular order, Jorge J. Don Birnam on Instagram talked to me about If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. My great friend and collaborator, Ryan McQuade, will of course bring you his thoughts on the Springsteen movie that we've talked about in a separate episode ahead of Telluride. AwardsWatch editor-in-chief, the great Erik Anderson. We're going to be talking about Hamnet. And Mark Johnson, who I probably know the longest of this group. We're going to talk about J. Kelly. And finally, Sophia Ciminello is going to talk to me about Yorgos Lanthimos, his new film starring Emma Stone, Bugonia. You can find their writing on AwardsWatch.com, among other places, and thank you so much for joining me here on Pop Culture Confidential. Here are our conversations. We're back again with a new guest in my little capsule interviews with my great housemates. Now with someone I adore, Mark Johnson, one of the best writers who hasn't been on Pop Culture Confidential for many years, although we now are staying together here at Telluride with the whole group. Mark, thank you so much for being here with me.
Very happy to be here with you.
How's your experience so far this year, the 52nd Telluride Film Festival?
It's been exhausting as usual, but the older I get, I think the more tired and whatnot I'm getting. But there's been a lot of great films, and it's always great to be here, and the conversations with you guys and other friends online that we see, along with stars and directors that we get to interact with at the parties and whatnot. So it's been great so far.
You and I are going to talk about a film that had its world premiere at Venice. It's Noah Baumbach's latest film called J. Kelly, starring George Clooney, Sandler, Laura Dern. It's interesting because we started hearing some reactions out of Venice, and it was a bit mixed. So we were wondering what we would think about this movie. But start us off, Mark. What were your reactions?
Yeah, I guess my first reaction was I must have seen a totally different movie than they saw in Venice, because I loved it. Every bit of it I loved. I have a tendency, and I don't know if this is common with folks, it seems to be, since conversations we've had, is I really connected to the character. There were a lot of things, tell the
about what it's about.
Okay. So Jake Kelly is an aging movie star, played by George Clooney, who's looking back on his career as he's realizing that he's chosen himself and his career over the family life that he could have had with his two daughters and former wives. So as he's doing that, he's on his way also to a career tribute, and he's
one of those that we see a lot in Italy, like a little festival somewhere that gives a tribute to a big Hollywood star.
We saw one that night for Noah Baumbach. Yeah, which was kind of really ironic. But he's got his entourage with him as he's on this journey across Europe. The two most notable players, you mentioned Laura Dern, who's his publicist, I think, and Adam Sandler plays his manager, who both of them have also had to make sacrifices with their family for the sake of Jay Kelly's career as well. So I think that's...
And you were saying you connected with...
Yeah.
Because you're not an aging movie star, Mark. No, I hate to break it to you.
No, I'm not. But, in the small world I come from, in Cleveland, Ohio, I'm not going to say I'm a movie star or anything like that, but, it's a big deal that I get to go to these festivals this past 9 years. And, the people who care about me, I know, are really excited for me when I come here. So I get to experience a smaller version of that. And more importantly, I'm getting older, as we all are, right? So I think that connection of getting older and looking back at, and questioning the decisions we've made in our lives, that has really connected with me as I'm in my, middle ages, I guess you'd say. And, I'd made a decision coming to Telluride, which was, an easy decision, and I don't regret it, but the consequence of coming to Telluride was missing one of my sons, who's a senior in high school, one of his football games. So there's only so many left of that. So, there was that already guilt feeling hanging over my head coming, and as I have the last, 9 out of the past 10 years here. So it was just, it really hit me in all the right places. But it's not just a sad film or anything like that, or retrospective film. It's also hilarious. Like, there's a lot of really fun side characters, and I think that was what I really liked about it the most, aside from what I was connecting with, was Clooney's terrific, but it's all the people around him and all the small characters that I think really what hold that film together.
No, I agree. I love, it's very poignant. I also recognize the guilt that one has, as a parent, and regrets and things which I think Noah did very well as director, but it also has Noah's humor, right?
Yeah.
And terrific not cameos, but appearances suddenly by Alba Rohrwacher, for example, who plays one of the festival people in Italy. Brilliant. So I'm with you. I was surprised at how much I liked this movie, and I want to single out the score too.
Oh yeah, Nicholas Britell. Right? Yeah. It's definitely one of my favorite scores either, maybe right behind Sinners. Mm-hmm. I really like the Sinners score, but it's definitely one of the better scores, and really, it's one of those that I'm looking forward to hearing. And I know we got a sample of one or something in email, so I need to give it a listen. But yeah, it's great.
So we'd both recommend it.
Yes, highly recommend. I can't wait to see it again because it's like you mentioned, Noah Baumbach's quick humor, quick wit. I'm sure I missed some of the funny moments while trying to hold back tears. So look forward to see it again. And
what I've mentioned before on this episode, which you and I talked about pertaining to this movie, there's so many films this year about sort of aging artists with regret, many of them fathers trying to reconnect with their daughters. We've seen that both in Sentimental Value, in this one. There's this type of issues in Hamnet.
La Grazia, the Springsteen movie, he deals with his issues his father has. We're going to see Frankenstein later tonight, if you count that, as far as, him and his creation. It's like his son.
Interesting, right? The theme of fathers. It's interesting that this is coming up now. It's our generation, I guess. Lastly,
pretty much.
Lastly, Mark, awards. Do you think anything for J. Kelly?
Wow, yeah, I definitely do. I think I had it, I think, in my number 3 spot coming into the festival behind Bugonia and Sentimental Value. I'm going to wait till I'm completely done with the festival to really figure out where everything will land, but I certainly think it's in the high echelon for Best Picture. I think Baumbach could be in there. He's certainly in the discussion for director and screenplay. Clooney for actor, Sandler for supporting actor. I don't know that Byrne has enough. It's a smaller role. But score, like we mentioned, score. I don't know that it's enough for cinematography, but it is very well shot. And I think it's Linus Sandgren that shot it.
He was actually in the movie.
Was he really?
Yeah, in that scene where they're doing... That. Yeah, they have a scene where even Noah Baumbach's in the shot.
Yeah, I saw that. Was he in that?
And he's filming it.
I was focused so much on Noah, I didn't even see buddy Linus. Yeah, Linus is one of my favorite cinematographers working today. So, but it's, I don't know that it's the typical type of film that would get that nomination, but it's beautiful. It is beautifully shot. It's paced really well. Screenplay. If I didn't mention that, yeah.
You'll want to follow Mark because you are the awards alchemist at AwardsWatch.com, which means that he's the one that you're putting all these predictions together, and you can follow him. How often do you do it?
It's once a month, usually minimally, and especially now that we're in Oscar season, it might pick up a little more than that. But yeah, my Awards Alchemist post kind of makes a science of breaking down the race, so a lot of statistics and analytics into what I write. And you can follow me there. And I also write for The Contending, and I'm on the expert panel at Gold Derby for Oscar predictions. And my Twitter, if you want that, is at Mark Likes Movies.
So if you want to win your Oscar for this year, you know where to look. Thank you so much, Mark. You'll be back on the show, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's back. The man you've been waiting for, the one who sweared that he would sob if Bruce Springsteen walked into the theater. He did.
I did.
He walked in. Ryan McQuade, you have seen the Bruce Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere. We've been talking about it several times on the show. He walked in. How did you feel?
I've met Bruce Springsteen before for like a book signing, and I got to talk to him for like 5 minutes. And so that was really cool, but that was like 10 years ago. So I like kind of forgot, like, oh my God, like the effect that this man can have once he walks into a room. And yeah, I mean, like it was a Q&A after our screening, and everybody kind of walked in, Scott Cooper, Jeremy Allen White, Jeremy Strong, John Landau. And then Bruce came out, and I was just like, oh, that's a legend right there. I don't need to I was overwhelmed at that point. I was like, oh. So yeah, I did kind of get a little emotional there.
And he was really funny. He was
candid.
He on one of the questions that he got on the panel was like, why did you want to do this? And his answer was basically, what did he say? He's
like, I'm old and I don't give a fuck. So like, let's just do it.
Yeah.
Which was great.
Well, we've seen the movie now too. Scott Cooper's Deliver Me From Nowhere, Jeremy Allen White as Bruce, Jeremy Strong as John Landau. Verdict?
A very mixed verdict. We did a very in-depth conversation about this, so I don't have to go into too much of the details already. Go back and listen. Yes, listen to that conversation. And a lot of that detail is missing here. A lot of this rich story of this dark period of Bruce Springsteen's life that is so impactful, not just for what it does with Nebraska and Born in the USA, but like we were having conversations here with all of our crew. This era has seeds that then branch out to what he does on Devils and Dust in the 2000s, what he does in the 90s with The Ghost of Tom Joad, his political statements, throughout the 80s to now, his mental health and his relationships with his parents, and how those blossomed by the end of his life, his personal relationships and how he could then have personal relationships. This is a very important time. And what Scott Cooper decides to do while trying to say, now he told us multiple times, I think at the opening night film and at our screening, that this is an unconventional biopic. I don't know how much of that is absolutely true.
It's not.
It's not. I think that Scott Cooper.
When you get to me, I'll tell you more thoughts on that.
I think Scott Cooper is talking out of both sides of his mouth. Now, I do think that it's not conventional in the sense of that it's the cradle to grave, every greatest hits, sort of films that we've seen, like Elvis, for example. Like that's exactly the type of film that this is not. And it's not necessarily even a complete unknown, which is a section of Dylan's life, but is much more compact, and you get a lot of music in that film. This movie is very quiet, and because of Nebraska is very quiet. And you do get a couple times where you get to see rocker Bruce, the Bruce that we all know. So we get to a little bit of a Born to Run sequence like seen in the trailer. And we get a couple, because the songs came out of this era, we get a couple of songs from the Born in the USA album, including, I would say, Christina, maybe one of the moments of the film where we see Jeremy Allen White perform Born in the USA. And if you closed your eyes, you would have thought that Bruce Springsteen was reincarnated. It's witchcraft.
Yeah.
It's devil's work. But the rest of the film is inconsistent, tonally all over the place. Additional characters are added that are unnecessary. Every female character is underwritten. And the main core story, which is his mental health and his relationship with his father, is undercooked, and even the Nebraska influences are undercooked. Mm-hmm. So can great performances lift a film over the top? Sometimes they can. But, I've had problems with this before with the genre where it can't just get out of its own trappings and be focused on these performances. Don't add all this other shit. Like, I think a great example of this is Love and Mercy, the Brian Wilson film, where it explores a very important album and then also this very important relationship. And that does it with two great actors in John Cusack and Paul Dano. I wish this film was more like that, where it was focused. It's very unfocused. And so it's probably the most disappointing film I've seen this year.
Oh, I'll start with mine. I'll start with the good. Jeremy Allen White is great.
Yeah.
He really embodies Bruce, and he doesn't look like him, and that's not necessary. But
there are times with the shadows, right?
Jeremy Strong is great as John Landau. I was interested in that relationship, which really, you understand how important they were to each other, how important John Landau was bringing Bruce Springsteen out from this very dark hole that he was in with his depression, and helping him go on, and helping him in a way that you don't see a lot of record executives do, to make this album where he wanted to do no tour, no press, nothing. And he helped him with that. That was great. When the movie started with the black and white little Bruce with his mother in a car going to pick up his alcohol, or to ask his father, who's drinking in a bar, to come home, I almost swallowed my popcorn thinking, this is Walk Hard. I just did not want to go to, that was all of the black and white flashback scenes with the father, to me, were exactly the same thing again and again. The mean father. And that was supposed to sort of show us be the whole impetus for this depression and who he was. And it was just unnecessary with that many. The making of Nebraska part was fine, a bit long. It was interesting. But the worst part of the movie for me is that there's a fictionalized female character. I won't spoil it, but it's completely unnecessary. And to me, it felt like you could have just had a sign that said, insert female character here, because we have none except for an underwritten mother who's in 2 scenes. And be done with it, because she was completely unnecessary. This was not a woman who was in Bruce Springsteen's life. And to me, it even felt unnecessary because having such a potential love interest in there was not part of that depression era and the hole that he was in. So I really did not understand that. So in terms of performances and fine, but I also felt that was a great disappointment. What did make me happy, though, I honestly can say it felt like on stage at the Q&A after, Bruce and John Landau are so happy with this movie. Really, I mean, not just like PR bullshit. He didn't have to be there, sitting there to help them out with this movie.
Bob Dylan didn't last year.
No, he really didn't have to. And if this is making him happy, go Bruce. I'm really tired of this type of biopic, and I just think I'm done with it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem I have is the book is so rich, Warren Zane's book, and Bruce's biography is very rich, even though the Nebraska chapter, as Scott Cooper said, is the thinnest chapter. But that's the most revealing part of his life. And I just felt that Scott Cooper as a director, he's got a good visual eye. I don't think he did anything wrong here, visually speaking. He as a writer sucks. Like, he's a bad writer, and he needed somebody here to give all the ideas and put it on the page to make it coherent. But also, back to the female character played by Odessa Young. I don't want to give too much into her, because really, I mean, the film doesn't either, but I don't need to give too much into her. It's such an interesting time period for Bruce Springsteen in relationships, because in this era, he's dating a movie star, and they dated for about 7 years, from the time he started Born to Run to about now. And in the time period in this thing. And about 84 is when he meets his first wife, Jonah Phillips, and then, but at the same time, he's having a behind the scenes tour affair with Patti Scialfa, you know what I mean? And that happens for about 10 years until they get married. And you know, the Tunnel of Love stuff is literally that album is a lot about his regrets of that first marriage. And I mean, literally, this is the song One Step Up and Two Steps Back. But
that's not in here.
That's not in here. But that relationship those relationships that he was having at the time, he couldn't have them. He pushed people away, and the reason was because he's dating a movie star. He's the biggest new rock act. He's had a chart hitting hit with, you know, Hungry Heart. And we see this John Landau saying, like, we need hits, we need things. And the thing that they start to show here is that he doesn't want to go more down that route. He wants to stay away from that route. And in doing so, he discovers this new era that we see him explore later in his life. But the relationship that he has in this movie, there's no through point to it. There's no reason by the end of it for its existence, because it's fake. And there's additional characters added to it that they don't add anything to his emotional catharsis at the end. No. I mean, like, and outside of, there's one moment, I will spoil it. There's one moment where he's at a fair and in El Paso, and this is a real thing that happened, where he had his breakdown, and the line he just says the line, Jeremy Alway, she was right, and we're like, what the fuck was she right about?
Yeah,
like what? Yeah. Like, I didn't see it. Yeah. What? And it felt so unnecessary, but it also just felt exploitative. Like, this character is there, she's almost stalkerish, yeah, and then she has an affair with it. Yeah, it was right out of like the Reba McEntire song, a single mom, works 2 jobs, who wants to fuck Bruce Springsteen and never stops. You know what I mean? Like, it was weird.
Yeah, it was, it was weird. No, we don't. But I will, the last question, Jay, I just want to say, listen to the show that Ryan and I did on Bruce, because all of the stuff we talk about there, the Terrence Malick is referenced a lot in this movie. I mean, we listen to ours instead.
Honestly, not enough. Not enough in the film.
Anyway,
all the references.
Finally, Oscar-wise.
Okay, so that's the thing, is that you and I might have frustrations with this, but this played like gangbusters here.
Yeah.
And people loved it.
And Jeremy Allen White is good. I mean,
no, Jeremy Allen White is extraordinary.
Yeah, we can't take that away from him.
I cannot express my frustrations on this is on a Scott Cooper level.
Mm-hmm.
It is not on a Jeremy Allen White level at all. This man,
he'll be nominated.
He could win.
Yeah.
Like, that is the type of performance when, like, I was watching it, I was trying to figure out, okay, are the stuffs that are the recordings on the tapes, are those Jeremy Allen White or is that Bruce? And then and we get like 4 live performances of him, and he's really good as Bruce, like phenomenal as Bruce. Then we stayed all the way to the credits, and I read the credits. Every song on that tape that is played in Landau's office or played for an audience to hear, or Mark Maron's wasted character in the booth is playing it or whatever, that's all Jeremy Allen White.
Yeah,
that's insane, because it sounds, because I've been listening to Nebraska again, like all the way while we've been here. It sounds exactly like that. But also Jeremy Strong, I must say, like, he is great. There's a scene at the end of this movie that if you have all these issues with it, and if you just follow it for their relationship alone, like, the movie's worth it, because they are
good. It's
great.
It's a little, he doesn't have a lot of an arc, really, to think that he would.
He doesn't have the whole. Yeah. He doesn't have the scene. He doesn't have the hole in the floor.
Right. Yeah, that was cut out. The scene that was in the trailer was
honestly great that they cut it out.
Yeah. But in terms of other stuff, though, like screenplay, directing, picture.
No, but picture, yes.
You think so?
I think this is that it's very rare that a lot of studios get multiple films in every year. And so Neon and all their films are going to be battling each other. We've been hearing all the stuff out of Venice and here with Netflix titles. And then Warner Brothers, they're going to have The Sinners and One Battle After Another conversation that we're going to talk about in a couple of weeks. That's going to open up spots. And I do think that this is going to be like Elvis and A Complete Unknown. I think it's going to be a good hit, and I think people are going to like it. And yeah, I think like the 2 performances, sound, maybe makeup, maybe like production design or something if they really go for it, because like they did with The Complete Unknown a lot last year. And so, but it is more minimalist than that film, I think. So I don't think Scott Cooper is getting in for director. It's a weak year in adapted screenplay, so maybe Dark Side, like Dark Horse candidate, he could, but that would be terrible. That would be a terrible nomination. Like I would be so mad, because again, if you read that book, it's so rich with detail, and this is as bland as possible. And then Scott Cooper, he's made good films before. Like, I like Crazy Heart, I like Hostiles. Out of the Furnace is a pretty solid pick. This is just like, of all the people, Christina,
I know that
in Hollywood, established directors to get the rights to do a Bruce Springsteen thing, Scott Cooper, and people gave him a standing ovation.
Yeah,
when he walked in for the Q&A, that was crazy. That was crazy. Yeah.
Anyway, Ryan, we know where to follow you on AwardsWatch. You're writing you're doing the review for them, so make sure to catch that. Yeah. And you'll be on the show soon again.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about all this
and stuff.
TIFF and then we got this little movie called One Battle After Another coming out.
PTA. Thank you so much. I am here with Sophia Ciminello, my real roommate of the AwardsWatch, because we actually share a room. We're really good roommates, aren't we?
Great roommates. I think we sleep in a really similar way, which is always helpful, especially when you're on the road at film festivals where sleep schedules can get tricky. So yeah, Christina, you are a great festival roommate.
Same. And I'm really excited to talk to you about this movie, Bugonia, that we're going to talk about, because it is an interesting, tricky movie, I think we both feel. This is Yorgos Lanthimos' latest with Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons. Why don't you start telling a little bit about what it's about and then what you thought of it?
Yeah, so this film is actually a remake of the Korean film Save the Green Planet, and it follows this pair of cousins who are conspiracy theorists, and they've really been through it, and as the movie goes on, we start to realize why they feel a particular way, why they're conspiracy theorists, what's happened in their past, but they are unhappy, and they set out to kidnap the CEO of a really, a high power company. It's somewhere between, I would say, like a big pharma company that's experimenting with different cures and medicines and drugs, but also a bit of an Amazon type of situation. We see the Jesse Plemons character at one point.
It's all the bad big
Right,
corporations in one.
Exactly right. What we think of like the big evil American corporation. That's exactly what this movie, where Emma Stone is the CEO and Jesse Plemons also works for this company too, just on the lower rung. We see him packaging up boxes at one point, and they kidnap her because they think that she is an alien, and they trap her in the basement of their house. A little bit of Silence of the Lambs vibes there, and start to really interrogate her about if they can take, if she can take them back to her planet to meet the emperor.
They
all sorts
shave
of
her
things.
head. That's what you see in the post. We've seen lots of pictures of that. I mean, it's basically torture. It's very violent what they're...
Yeah. And then it just really escalates from there. It's a very weird movie. I think like a lot of Lanthimos' movies, very, very violent and out there. But for me, this didn't have the same kind of, and I think you agree with this, the same kind of bite and strong commentary that some of his earlier films do.
Yeah, I'm a Lanthimos fan, but I think what I've been comparing it with is my feelings towards Eddington, Ari Aster's movie, where I feel that they are taking very sort of obvious things we're talking about a lot in society, be it political or gender roles, and just making pretty obvious cliched metaphors. So for me, it didn't work.
Yeah, and you talking about cliches and it feeling surface level, my favorite Lanthimos film is The Favorite. His,
I love it.
Oscar-winning collaboration with Tony McNamara, Olivia Colman, also Emma Stone again, Rachel Weisz. And I think what I love about that movie so much is that it is odd and it's so funny, but it also feels like this really cool, different examination of women in power and what people will do to curry favor with those in power, how they can rise up in the social ranks. At a certain point in the movie, right, Emma Stone's character, she is, she's not a royal, but she's trying to, weasel her way in with the queen. And this movie, Bugonia, I think that kind of commentary on women in power, women in leadership positions, it's so surface level.
Exactly.
It feels like something you would see in a meme on Facebook from 2016. It's just, we don't get into it enough, and it's a shame because I think especially...
It's not surprising, right?
Not surprising.
I love your point about The Favorite because there's surprising commentary. It goes in a different direction. Here, basically, the surprises are that it becomes really violent.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
just goes to a form of violence that you're supposed to, like shock violence. That's the surprise.
Yes, and that violence feels empty here. It's not fun. It doesn't really have a point.
Yeah, and I don't think either you or I are against. I mean, we can do a violent film with a point is fine.
Look, I love a mafia movie. Some of my favorite movies are Martin Scorsese movies, like directors that aren't shy with violence.
Good satires that are very violent are fine too. I mean, I just love 28 Years Later, which has incredible violent scenes, but I think used in commentary correctly.
Yes, and I think also if we think about films that are satires of the rich or of different social classes, look at Parasite. That's an incredibly violent film. You think about that birthday party at the end or that rock and how that comes up in that film, but that violence felt like the only thing that could have happened, the only solution, and it felt so, I think, intricate and earned with the rest of the script. And here it just felt like, I'm bored. I want to throw in something that you might think is funny or fun or out there, but it just didn't have a point to me.
We do agree, though, that the performances in the center of it are good, and they really go there.
They really do. And, I mentioned Emma Stone a bit, and I think at the beginning of the film in particular, where we see her walking around this corporation where she works, saying these like fake highs and niceties to everybody. She's recording this video for a diversity training, and she has this clipped CEO like speak and voice that I think works really well and is so funny. And I think, she, like in every Lanthimos movie, is really committed to the role. I think I just want her to work with someone else now.
Yeah, we want to see her. I mean, she can come back to Lanthimos.
Totally.
But little break.
Let's go elsewhere. It's funny you bring up Eddington because I really liked her in Eddington.
Yeah,
I just wish she had more to do in that movie. So yeah, I'd like to see her step out of that. And then Jesse Plemons, I do think is pretty fantastic here, even though I didn't like the movie. I think that he is doing something that is really scary and also feels it's the one thing in the movie that I think does feel honest at times and does feel true to a greater problem that we're seeing. I think especially with
the conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy theorists, he doesn't get his news from the news. And those types of people that are in such a bubble where they are just feeding that constantly of what they already think and what they already, think they know. He's very good, I think, at convincing us of that.
Yeah. So that's we agree on that. So it has stuff that works. And if you want to, I mean, it's definitely interesting. So go see it if you're curious about it. I've asked everyone to, at the end here, what do you think awards? Will there be awards talk about this? I mean, there's always awards talk about Yorgos in the last few years.
That's the tricky part because there is, anytime now that he releases a movie, there is awards chatter in the early stages automatically. I think this one is actually somewhere in between Poor Things and Kinds of Kindness. I don't think it has the same type of, expertly crafted world that Poor Things did that I think viewers were just dazzled by. The cinematography, the costumes, the production design. That's not here in this. It's contemporary, so it's a little bit more stripped back. So there isn't a new world that he's really creating here. So I don't think they can lean on that.
It's a small movie. It's a house in a basement mostly.
Yes. And I do think, whereas I think when Poor Things came out and people did really like it and it won the Golden Lion at Venice, people were still skeptical about its awards chances, I think because of the amount of sex in the movie. But at the core of that, there was this story of Bella Baxter on this journey that I think a lot of people connected with. And clearly, I don't think the Academy is shy towards sex. And this one doesn't have the sex that Poor Things did, but it does crank up that violence that we were talking about. Right. And I do think that will put people off. I do. And I think that this will not be as divisive or abrasive or hard to get through as the anthology structure of Kinds of Kindness. But I do think people will be put off by it and its awards chances are somewhat limited. I do think wherever they decide to run Emma Stone, she will be competitive to get a nomination. I think they just like her. She's doing a lot in this. She shaves her head. Like we talked about, how her performance is really good. And then I think adapted screenplay is a fairly thin category this year, so it's possible. But the tricky part is that Focus Features, they are the ones distributing Bugonia, and they have a juggernaut with Hamnet on their hands.
Could you compare it a bit like maybe to The Substance last year, which has a lot of violence and maybe is tricky for some voters?
I would say possibly, but the thing about The Substance is that felt, I think, the overall uniqueness and how original it felt and the themes that it was talking about, I think it went much deeper. And I think that's why people connected with it and connected with Demi Moore and her performance in particular. And that was the big movie everybody was talking about out of Cannes, aside from Anora. Whereas I think Bugonia will kind of get lost and won't have as much staying power as the season goes on.
Sophia, thank you. We'll see you next time we room again at some fabulous festival.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It was so fun to chat about this movie. And it's always fun to talk about things we don't necessarily agree with the consensus on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next up from the Telluride 52nd edition is one of my favorites, a writer who's staying with us, or I'm getting to stay with them, I should say, with the AwardsWatch team. It's Jorge, freelance writer. How's your experience been so far?
Oh, it's been great. Thank you for having us. Thank you for, it's been just wonderful. Part of the fun of the experience is actually staying with people that are so into movies. But we're on day 3, which means that we're about halfway through. And it's just been the usual. It's a magical place. And we were just in line talking to film lovers. And that's the value of Telluride. So it's been great.
Young and old, a 19-year-old kid here studying film who knows everything and patrons and journalists. It really is like an experience. But you've chosen to talk about which film?
If I had legs, I'd kick you.
Yeah.
Which I wanted to make sure not to mispronounce it, but yeah.
Tell us about that and your thoughts.
So this is a movie starring Rose Byrne, and also I guess Conan O'Brien is in it, which he's really good. But so this is a movie about motherhood, and this is a story about a woman who feels like she's not up to the task, and she's going through a lot of really difficult things that are happening to her at the same time. And it almost feels like the movie, I thought it was a wonderful film. It was very difficult to watch, but you should see it if you can. I know you've seen it, but the movie feels like it lives on this tight edge between being brutally serious and also a comedy in a very strange way. But so essentially, without spoiling too much of the plot, because I think it's sort of important to be as fresh as possible.
And there's a lot of cameo type appearances, but I can mention A$AP Rocky because I think that's out there.
A$AP Rocky,
who's great. And he's had 2 great roles in Spike Lee's film and in this one.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Totally. And I'm like, the name of the director is Mary Bronstein. Yeah. So she, it's clearly a personal story to her, as she explained it at one of the Q&As. But so this woman, Rose Byrne, right, the character played by Rose Byrne, has to deal with all sorts of difficult things that are happening in her life related to, her daughter. She has to deal with some things with her daughter. Something happens in her apartment. This is all early on, so not too much of a plot spoiler. But it's almost, everything that can go wrong will, and it happens to her. And she's sort of trying to battle through it. And she finds... she releases her anger and her frustration on like the parking attendant, right? So those are the funny moments of the movie, but there's some really serious, heavy things that are happening to her. And so she's a therapist. She has a therapist, and her therapist is Conan O'Brien, and he's kind of
cold,
withholding.
Yeah.
Her patients are a handful. Danielle McDonald, who people probably remember from the movie Dumpling, is in one of her patients. She's very good. And so there's a lot of stress that's created by these very difficult situation with children, babies, and Carol.
She's tired. I mean, she has all the things of a tired parent.
Yeah.
Extremely tired. She's running on no sleep. I compared it to Night Bitch, a movie that I didn't like. I love Amy Adams, but I was not a fan of Night Bitch, which I was hoping, I think, was this film, or more of this film, that it would be as relentless. I was hoping she actually would turn into a dog and that it would be, what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I saw this one, I felt an immediate satisfaction that this was what I was waiting for. But as you say, I just want to reiterate, it's a relentless movie. And I think that a lot of people may find her too unsympathetic if you can't get into the situation she's in. I hope I'm not spoiling, because I think that's at the beginning also. Really, having a child who's also quite ill, which means that she has an added stress that she has to deal with, and a husband who's basically not around.
Basically. He's not around.
Yeah.
So that's a wonderful... So first of all, the Night Bitch thing, that's brilliant, and that is exactly what it is. It is, and I hate, because I love Marielle Heller and Amy.
Yeah, me too.
I hate to say it, but this is what Night Bitch should have been.
Exactly.
And then to connect as your second point, it's daring you. I don't know if the director is daring you not to like the character, but she's being very honest about these things that the woman does, that Rose Byrne's character does, that you might judge her for doing, right? Let's say, for example, drinking while she's taking care of her kid. But like, I mean, maybe my husband's listening. Like, I've certainly had a glass of wine when I'm taking care of our baby and he's not there because it's stressful. And
I hope listeners won't judge me when they see it and I say I recognized a lot of things.
And then she's doing some things where, you know,
as
where
a
you're,
parent.
Yeah, she's doing a lot of things where you're like, as a parent, you start to realize that you maybe can't judge that and you maybe wouldn't want to do that, but it's so hard what she's going through. So all of this is to say that the movie feels very real and very visceral, and it's going to evoke a lot of reactions. And yeah, she's not going to be a likable character to a lot of people, but I think she's a very sympathetic character. I really felt that way. You know, again, maybe it's my perspective. I have a 2-year-old, like, you know, going through that, but like, you know, she's doing the best that she can with as little as possible. And what's happening in her life is this, right? Horrible big picture things. You mentioned one. Horrible big picture things are happening to her that are like the worst thing that's ever happened to you. That could one of the worst things that happened to you, like an ill child.
Yeah.
But also daily little things that are happening to her.
Exactly. The pizza falls.
The parking attendant, the patient leaves and like just deal with that. Like all of these things are happening to her. And at some point I honestly thought like, I don't know. I don't know that I would survive what's happening to her. And of course, obviously it's fictionalized and like, you know, they're putting a lot of things together, but it's a really good movie, very worth watching. And it just sort of reminds you why film festivals are so rewarding, because you're going to sit through a movie that it's not, you know, necessarily what you're going to watch when you're looking to relax at home with Netflix, but it's going to challenge you. And it's going to, what I admire most is the bravery, right? Like, because women who tell these stories about how hard it is to be a mother, but not just how hard it is to be a mother. She, at some point, is telling you that it's not just difficult, it's something she doesn't like. People hate women when they say that. Like, people hate women when they say that. You're not supposed to say that. That's going to divide on you. Yeah, you're not supposed to say that. And so she does. And I admire that courage. And she convinces you that you don't have to like it. You don't have to like motherhood. It's okay to say, this is not for me.
Another movie that's good, if your listeners are in on this, is The Lost Daughter, which also has that theme. Yeah. So we both recommend this movie. What do you think? Very Last much. Question in terms of Oscar award season going forward. Rose Byrne, I'd love to see her get appreciation, also award rights. But
yeah, I mean, it's, you know, I think what you said, right? Like, she definitely deserves it. Best performance of her career, and it's brilliant comedic actress. I mean, her range is incredible. And again, this movie, it lives on the edge between comedy and farce and serious, like horrible drama. So she nails all of it. And by the way, the camera is on her face close up for about 80% of the movie. Yeah. Like, you see her walking around with her full body like 3 times. She deserves an Oscar nomination. Question is, can people get over their dislike of the character? The movie's going to be hard for them to watch, and not the most sympathetic character. Very deserving. I hope she gets it. You know what would be, if they're smart, an editing nomination is very deserved. Yeah. Because of how the movie interplays, like it creates the tension, and that's good editing does. So that would be, you know, a screenplay is not out of the picture. A screenplay's not out of the picture, because the original screenplay. Yeah. So I would love that. I mean, the sky's the limit, but it's going to be a hard movie.
Jorge, thank you so much. Tell everyone where they can read your things that are coming out of Telluride and beyond.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. On Instagram, I'm at Awards Predicts. On X, J. Birnam, my writing name. And I'm going to be covering things for, gosh, I'm going to feel bad if I don't mention everyone, but AwardsWatch, Best Picture, The Contending, and other places. So thank you for having me.
I'm here with Erik Anderson, founder, owner, editor-in-chief of AwardsWatch, who I just spent glorious days at Telluride with. Besides my own family, he may be the one that sat next to me and cried or seen me cry the hardest in life in general at several movies in Europe, here, everywhere. So I'm so glad to be able to talk to you a little bit about one of the movies that I think affected us. I'm not saying too much to say that this was a big experience for both you and me, and that is Chloe Zhao's Hamnet, which she co-wrote with the author of the, for me, incredible novel, Hamnet, which is the story of Will and Agnes Shakespeare, also known as Anne Hathaway, and the loss of their son, their marriage, an incredibly powerful book, which I thought would be completely unadaptable. Tell me a little bit more about the story and your thoughts, Erik.
Well,
I really adored the book. It is the first maybe third of it is extremely heavy on prose. So there's no dialogue in the sense of a traditional kind of back and forth. It's very elliptical in its structure. And admittedly, that first third is I don't want to say a slog in an overly negative way, but it was tougher to get through because I wanted to be able to I wanted to get into the story a little quicker. And, that might be just me wanting to want that faster. But I will say that once the main element of the story began, I really appreciated all of the setup that had happened before. But to your point, this felt like an incredibly difficult story to tell cinematically. Will Shakespeare as a character is never mentioned by name. His work is never explored or really talked about in the novel because the point of view is so largely from Agnes and in the film played by Jessie Buckley. So I think the thing that most of us were really looking forward to, anxious or excited, whatever we were, was exactly how Zhao and O'Farrell were going to be able to translate this very heavy perspective and prose into a version that is for cinema. A book going to a 2-hour film is going to go through an enormous amount of change and those requirements that are needed for the visual medium. And it would be an understatement to say that I was stunned at how successful it was, even though, as a fan of the book, as I was anticipating moments in the book to happen in the film, the way that they unfolded there became even richer than I could have expected.
It's one of the most elegant adaptations of a novel I've seen because it's so difficult. One of the things they did was do it chronologically instead of jumping around as they do in the book, which made it very powerful. The fact that we first get to know this marriage, this couple, their love story, and then tragedy strikes and what happens between them and the grief. One of the most incredible performances of the year, Jessie Buckley, and Paul Mescal is incredible as her partner. One of the things, Eric, that was big in Telluride was this theme of art and the healing power of art, particularly in a marriage or between parents. And what do you make of why this has been such a strong theme here at the festival?
I think something that happens sometimes with films that are about art or artists is they can feel very removed from the average person to be able to have a relatability factor. And I think something like J. Kelly and most definitely Hamnet have is they take the concept of Shakespeare and what we think we know about Shakespeare and what we do know about Shakespeare and every story that's ever been told, whether it's Romeo and Juliet or Hamlet or King Lear or Twelfth Night, all elements that are in this film in some way that they're not even really Easter eggs so much for us as viewers, but it's a part of the fabric of the stories of every life that has existed for the last 200 years. We understand all of these stories because we have either lived them or we have seen them in a way that has been transcribed from Shakespeare. But I think the element that is the most important from this is that this is not a William Shakespeare biography. Right. This isn't Shakespeare in Love. It's not a romantic comedy. To that point, it's also not a depressing saga that is so dark that it's inaccessible either. I think it is the thing that is the most successful when you're telling a story of an artist that allows the viewer who may not be to find the way into this story, whether it is as a parent or as a child or a sibling, whatever it might be. And I think that's what Hamnet does in a way that was cinematically, again, the most surprising, the most impactful. And, you know, when I come to Telluride and I cry at Telluride, which is very, very often now, and very often with a Paul Mescal movie, it's because I have some type of personal connection that I can understand. This was not the case with Hamnet. I am a parent, but I have not lost a child. I have not separated from a marriage. Yet I understood every single moment at every moment of this story. And I think that was something that transcended both my personal experience as well as my just pure love of movies.
And for me, it was a personal experience because I very much related to, since I'm married to a screenwriter, and I'm very much connected to being the partner of someone who expresses themselves that way and how much leeway to give and how that feels. But one of the things that we noticed at Telluride lastly is that this was the movie that everyone was talking about in lines with all the patrons when we were waiting around, the different journalists when we were sitting at lunch. And this is a pretty relentlessly sad movie. It's beautiful, but also a difficult watch. Were you surprised at this, that this seemed to be the consensus movie of Telluride?
I was incredibly surprised because I think, especially if the world is going through a really difficult time, whether it's politically or socially, and we are going through both right now, that sometimes a sad story is not the story that people want. And even if it's a wonderful film, it can be regarded as cold or distant, even if it's respected. And that did not happen with this. And I think, you know, I don't want to spoil, but I think part of the reason for that is the adaptation of it expands so much to be cinematic that when we get to the ending of this story, that we get to have a catharsis with our lead, with Agnes, that is so fulfilling that we get to have that catharsis with her.
And that's why you keep talking about it.
Yes.
And living it with whoever's sitting next to you. And yeah.
And I think that's the thing that transcends kind of almost anything. Mm-hmm. If you're a person that says, I don't like a period piece, or I don't like this type of film, I think this breaks those barriers down in a way that we have not seen in a little bit. And I'm really happy for that. I'm happy because I think it's such a beautiful story. I'm happy because I wanted it to happen. Yeah. So it's a little bit of wish fulfillment there. I don't think I have seen anything quite so beautiful. And that is to Chloe Zhao's unbelievable group of collaborators that she has on this, from Lucas Jal as her cinematographer.
Zone of Interest.
The Zone of Interest sound, Johnny Burns. There is something about it that begins a little remote, a little, it's wistful and mysterious. And I think it's such a great entry point for a story because it feels like fantasy. It feels
like a fairy tale.
Yeah, it feels like a fairy tale.
What is this? A fairy tale? Is it a biopic? Is it a marriage story? What is this?
And then it becomes all of those things.
Everything. Yeah. I've asked everyone to end this talking about what do you think are the awards chances? What are we going to hear about this?
So before I saw it, I felt pretty good. And in one of those, this looks really good on paper. And that was, mostly for Zhao, for Jessie Buckley as a lead actress. And based on the novel, it was whatever Mescal's Will Shakespeare was going to be. In the film, he is very, very much a co-lead in this story. In the novel, he's almost barely a cameo. So it is one of those wonderful things where if you are familiar with the book, the adaptation, the difficulty level is so extraordinary.
It's really...
So I feel like those components are absolutely locked in. Cinematography, editing, sound.
Max Richter, perhaps?
Max Richter's, yes. I mean, I will say, I think his work as a composer is incredible. I think it's fantastic in this. There is one thing at the end that I believe gilds the lily more than it needs to.
I was okay with it.
But I was okay with it. Exactly. When you see it and you get it, you'll know why. But it was okay.
Yeah.
And I just feel that any person that is in the awards spectrum for voting, I feel like they're going to see this and it's going to transcend just sadness,
yes,
or depression, or what people think of these kind of stories, because it absolutely does.
And Erik, I want to take this opportunity. It's such a good time I have with the AwardsWatch crew. We've been to Cannes together this year and now Telluride and all the shows we do together. And I want to thank you so much for including me in Pop Culture Confidential in a little corner of AwardsWatch. You guys are just the smartest. I have such a great time talking to you and being with you and all our insides jokes, which we can't even go into on the air. So thank you so much. And I can't wait to see you in the mountains next year.
I can't wait for that time too.